Alright, what is up 3-2 gang? It's your boy TSM and welcome back to another video. In this video, figured I'd just take you guys along throughout my day and then at the end, I'll probably make a beat. Might show you guys how to do some different 808 tricks and stuff. So yeah, stick around for the whole video and let's stay started.
What? Mom said what? Why? I'm trying to do a video. Y'all are haters.
So literally, I was just messing around. This is the beat that I just made. Sitting in my car listening to it, just trying to make sure the mixing is good. And it's turned out pretty good.
Whoa, TSM, this is the best beat ever!
I'm gonna skip a little bit.
Whoa, TSM, this is the best beat ever!
Found that lighter hack where like this is a normal lighter, like a big lighter. Then you take this lighter and it's like, come on. Like you're really tall. Alright, so basically I've just been working all morning. I've been doing some different things. I've uploaded a new type beat. If you guys don't check out my type beats, go ahead and do that because they're pretty fire. So yeah, just been doing some different things, helping around the house. Now I'm going to surprise my girlfriend because she's been out of town for a while. She doesn't know I'm gonna be at her house, but I'm going to surprise her and hopefully get her reaction. Alright, so I'm hiding in her brother's room. She doesn't know that I'm here. They just got here. I'm gonna surprise her.
Why She what?
I'm gonna get
2 hours later.
So I'm leaving her house now. Didn't film really. It's 2:45. I didn't film while I was there because just wanted to spend time with her, you know. And yeah, but now we're gonna head home and probably talk about what you guys clicked on the video for. All right. So I've seen a lot of videos recently about 808s and how to make your 808s you know, hit a lot harder. So what I've done is I've decided to go ahead and show you guys all the strategies that I use for my 808s just to make them hit as hard as possible. So what I've got is I've got this piano that I pulled up. It's just basic acoustic piano, stock, and then I've got this little pad to go with it. Together, sound like this. And I got a simple clap to go with it. And then just for the purpose of this video, some hi-hats. And yeah, so that's all I've laid out so far. Let's get started on these 808s. So first thing you're gonna want to do, the most important part to your 808s is finding a good sound. You want to make sure that the sounds that you have are really just good sounds overall, good quality sounds. If you don't want to pay for packs, Cymatics has a lot of good free packs that you can just download. They've got amazing, really high quality sounds in them, and they're free to use. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I have this this World 808 loaded up here. So first thing you want to do, just to make sure they sound good, something that not all producers do, is you want to make sure that you're tuning your 808s, because if they're not tuned, it may not sound that bad at first, but trust me, when you get the beat finished and stuff, it's just, that's not going to sit right. So Cymatics with their samples, they always show what the root note is. So I'm going to go in here, change our root note to F#2. You'll see it change down there. That's the root note of the sample. So now that's all these are tuned, and then to make sure that it's in tune with the actual melody, the chords that we've laid out, a simple trick that I've learned is to just copy the bottom, the root of these chords down here at the bottom that are here in our MIDI track for the piano, and then literally just taking that and just putting it down on the 808s. Want to slide it up one octave. So now they're automatically in tune with our piano. So those automatically will be, you know, sounding good and in tune with what you're doing. You don't always have to make them exactly like the keyboard, but I've just found that's how I usually always start, is just to get them in tune with this MIDI file that we've got here. Next thing, there's a few different ways you can do. You don't want it exactly lined up with this MIDI file, because usually that will be just a little too simple, a little basic. If you're making pop tracks, then sometimes that'll sound good, and it's a good thing to do in pop or, you know, other genres. But in hip hop and in trap, you really want to make sure that you have your 808s a little bit spiced up, just to give it a little bit more emphasis and a little bit more clarity in the sound. There's a few different ways to do that. One of the simplest ways is just to add a slide in it. Studio One makes it really easy to do slides. I'll show you guys how to do that real quick. One thing, when you're making a slide, you don't want the 808 to just end abruptly, because that can be easy to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to go here to loop and go to release, and then you're going to take this and you're going to drag it to highlight just one little sound wave like this. So now it's going to loop just that one sound wave. So when we hold it down, it's not going to end. And then the next thing to do to make it kind of slide, to add the slide effect, is you go over here, you make it a mono sample, and then you turn on glide right here. So what that does is, if we're here and we have our 808, let's say we want to make a slide right here an octave up, that kind of makes our, if you make it a little shorter, it usually sounds better. That's just a nice little way to just, you know, make a little bit of a different effect. Another thing you can do is a 2-octave slide. That's a cool little way that you can do that. And you can kind of just throw that in wherever it sounds good. Usually towards the end of a 4-bar loop, that's a good spot to do it. So let's say we want it right here. We want it to shift up an octave there, and then up another octave, a double. So we've got our... So let's listen to how that sounds with everything. So that sounds cool. That's one way to do it. Another way that I just picked up recently, this is a really cool tactic that I just learned the other day. I've already used it in a couple beats. It's basically a way to use the built-in arpeggiator inside of Studio One to make the 808 kind of go crazy towards the end of your 4-bar loop. I'll show you guys how to do that real quick. So what you're going to want to do is pull up another sample one, a completely separate one from the first one you just did, but find the same 808 sample. Usually I don't do, you want to make it mono, but I don't usually do the whole glide thing. What you're going to want to do, let's say this is where we want it. We're going to take that note, going to take it out of the original 808 track and put it into the second one. Okay, and you've got that there, so now gotta make sure to tune it. That's what happens when you don't tune it. F sharp 2. Let's redo this again. So it's in there, and it sounds just the same right now, but this is where it can get a little different, is if you go over here, make sure you hit the eye, the inspector, right here up at the top left, and go over here into these settings here. If you go to note effects right here, press add and go to arpeggiator. Here's your arpeggiator. It's a stock thing in Studio One, and this can take your note right here and take it up an octave or down or whatever you want it to do. I usually actually like to set it on random, and what it'll do is it'll shift it between whatever octaves you have it set at. I usually set my octave range at 3. Sometimes you can do just 2 if you just want to 2-octave slide, and this is how often it'll change within this one note. It'll change every 8th note right here, or every 16th note like that. For this one, I'll just leave it at 1/8. Every 1/8 note, it's going to change our thing, and what it sounds like that is we've got our 808 going, and then when this hits, it kind of randomly just chooses a few different things you can do with it. If we hold it down, you see it just randomizes the way it shifts it up, and so that can add a really cool little effect. We've got our 808 just going kind of normal, and it just does a little random slide, and every time it goes over again, it's going to be random again. So there you have that. A way, if you want to just try, the way to kind of try out a couple options and make it set on one thing is if you just bounce the track. You can do that with Command B. It'll make an audio form of that track, and then that's the one you get. And if you don't like that, you can always go back, do it again, and it'll make a completely different one. And you just keep going through until you find one that you like. So that's another way to get your sample, your 808s to slide in a pretty cool way without a whole lot of effort, because the arpeggiator kind of does all the stuff for you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's look at some effects. That's the next thing on the list, is effects. Effects can make just about any sound sound a little bit better, a little bit different. The main thing for an 808 that you'll hear time and time again is distortion. Distortion will make the 808 hit so much harder than it did before. Presonus has a really good stock distortion plugin. It's this red light distortion right here, and let me turn the 808 down just so you can hear what it does. So here's it without it. Just gives it a lot more punch and drive to it. You can kind of fiddle with how you want it to sound. There's a few different ways you can do it. This will give it a lot of high frequency distortion, but not make the low end so unbearably distorted. I'd say that's a good little place to set it at. Another effect you can do that's really effective is sidechain compression. Sidechain compression, basically, it uses the kick and the 808, and it makes them both hit a little extra hard. Makes the start of the 808 note give it a lot more oomph and power to it. So what you're gonna do is, if you go, you're gonna load up another sample one. We'll go into our samples here, find a good kick. Let's see. Let me just. That one has a lot of hit to it. So what you're gonna do when you're making your kick, just to make it be in line with the 808, usually just a good starting point for me is just taking your 808 track, copying it over to the kick, and then setting them all to the root note of the kick, which in this case would be C3. So now without it, with it, without it, with it. So it just makes it all hit a little harder. And then to do the side chain compression thing properly, because sometimes when you turn up that 808, it can still kind of drown out the kick and not make it, especially when you don't have as hard of a kick sample. Sometimes they don't, the 808 can kind of drown out the kick a little bit. So a way to work around that to make your kick hit really hard and as well as your 808 is sidechain compression, which is what I'm about to show you guys. What you're going to want to do is take your compressor, throw it on your 808, and usually I like to keep the threshold a little lower at around 22, leave the knee at about 6 or 7, and that's going to make our 808 really really quiet. You'll hear like this is it without. You can clearly hear it in the mix, but when you turn on that compressor, it makes it really quiet. That's not what we want, because we still want it to hit really hard. So what we're gonna do with this compressor is make it only turn on and lower the 808 whenever the kick hits. The way you do that is with sidechain compression. You go to this little sidechain button, you've got your compressor set up, and just hit sidechain. Then you go to your kick right here. This is our kick channel. Go to sends and sidechains. Turn off, click the compressor that you have, and then turn the pre-fader on. So So what that does is you can kind of see the yellow line every time the kick hits. The 808 is kind of brought down a little bit from what it was, and that allows your kick to hit just as much as your 808. That's a good little tactic. That's about all of the tactics I use for my 808s. What I'll do is I'll throw all of them into a beat at separate times and just let you hear the effects on them. I'll put the beat at the end of the video. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something. If you did, make sure you subscribe and like the video. I post content as frequently as I possibly can, so make sure you guys subscribe and check out my other videos too if you're interested. Yeah, also make sure you follow me on social media. I'm really active on Instagram and kind of active on Twitter, trying to get a little bit more into that. So make sure you guys follow me on that. The links will be down in the description, as well as my SoundCloud link for my personal music. I don't upload beats onto there, but I do put my own recorded music out onto there. So make sure you follow that as well. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.